Yo, what's crack-a-lackin'? Casey James here, kicking it with you, and welcome to KC's Corner. And you know how I do it. I give you the 411 and I keep it real, and if you don't know, you better ask somebody. Well, we have got two Game 4s to talk about, starting with the Stanley Cup Finals. Game 4 last night between the Carolina Hurricanes and the Vegas Golden Knights in Las Vegas, with the Canes getting a huge win to tie the series up at 2 games apiece as they go back to Carolina on Thursday for Game 5. I mean, this series, they have been going at it mano a mano. And like I always say about the Stanley Cup playoffs, it is the best playoffs, bar none. And I will be all up in the hockey Kool-Aid to break this all down for you. Also coming up too, we're just a few hours away from Game 4 of the NBA Finals between the New York Knicks and the San Antonio Spurs at the Garden in New York, with the Knicks leading the series 2 games to 1 after the Spurs went into New York City and handled their business on Tuesday, winning it 115 to 111. I mean, it was supposed to be a New York coronation. It was supposed to be a Knicks party. They were going to party like it was 1999, like they had won the championship. If they won Game 3, well, the Spurs said, whoa, whoa, everybody get back in your lane, slow your roll, because we got something to say about that. In fact, in the words of my main man, Lee Corso, not so fast, my friend. So the Spurs get a big win, and now I will dive into what I think is going to happen in this huge Game 4 coming up tonight at Madison Square Garden, MSG, the Mecca, and everybody will be in the house. Also, too, in Major League Baseball, Shohei Ohtani, of course, he puts on a show all the time, but now he's making a case to win Cy Young and MVP for the Dodgers. He'll be on the mound a little bit later on today against the Pittsburgh Pirates, but this dude is an absolute freak. He's not from this planet. And the question is Shohei Ohtani the greatest athlete we have seen ever in any sport? We will dive into that. And Serena Williams makes her comeback to tennis after almost 4 years, as she wins in doubles at the Queen's Club in England the other day. And Serena Williams, again, great to see the Queen back on the court. She was at the Queen's Club. She wins in doubles with Victoria Mboku. Now, Victoria Mboku also played in singles, and she got injured earlier today, injured her knee in a fall, and she's questionable to continue on in the tournament as Serena's partner. So even though Serena has made her comeback, a triumphant one, there's a little bit of a damper on that, and we'll see what happens with that going forward. But we will get into that conversation too. So we got all that and a whole lot of shaking going on. Make sure that you subscribe to my sports channel, KCJ Sports, right here at KCJAMES 9186. That's at KCJAMES 9186, KCJ Sports. You can click the subscribe button, and you can also watch all the videos and the interviews. You can click notifications so you can find out when I am here live. And also you can comment and get involved in the show. I'd love to have you do that because it is all good in KC Sports neighborhood. And we will start off with the Stanley Cup playoffs. The Stanley Cup finals have been absolutely off the charts. They've been lit. These two teams are legit, and they have gone at it. Carolina and the Vegas Golden Knights, Game 4. In 4 games, they have scored 32 goals. One of the complaints I always had about hockey back in the day was they didn't score enough. We'd have a whole lot of activity, a whole lot of action, dudes crashing into the boards, dudes going off skating all over the place, and then the score would be 1-0 or 2-1 because they had to go to the penalty shot. Well, now we have a whole different kind of hockey. They've changed the rules, and it is exciting. These dudes go out and they sell out every single night. They skate their asses off every night. They sell out. They give it everything they had. Hockey dudes are really true tough guys. I mean, they will give up their chiclets for a win to win the Stanley Cup. How about Jack Hughes back in the Olympics in France, giving up those teeth to win the gold medal? He said, I'd do that any day. I mean, hockey players are a different breed. They give it, there's no load management in hockey. Are you kidding me? Playing in hockey is a badge of honor. They want to go out there and play for their teammates. Dudes will cut off, I don't know if they'll cut off their right arm, but I bet you they'll cut off their right pinky finger like Ronnie Lott did when he played for the 49ers back in the day. Remember the story of Ronnie Lott? He had broken the nail or something. They were going to have to sew it back up, and the trainers and the medical staff told him, you can't go out there and play. Well, Ronnie said, cut it off because I'm going back out there to be with my teammates. That's the mentality of a hockey player. They will say, cut it off because I'm going back out there to play. And these Stanley Cup playoffs and the finals have been all that. Game one, Carolina takes a 2-goal lead. The Knights come back and win it 5-4. Game two, the Knights take a 2-goal lead. Carolina comes back to win in overtime, 4-3. Game three, they go into double overtime. And the Knights, who were down, who were leading, they got tied. And then they ended up winning it in double overtime as they had a 4-goal lead, gave up the whole 4-goal lead because Carolina scored 3 goals in 39 seconds. They tied it up with a minute 42, but then the Knights come back and win in double overtime. They just survived that. And then last night, we were tied up 3 goals apiece in the third period. Jordan Staal, 37-year-old defenseman for the Carolina Hurricanes, who, when he was, at 17 years ago, he was with the Pittsburgh Penguins in the Stanley Cup final. He scored a goal where he literally had almost fallen down on the ice, somehow backhanded the goal into the net. They take a 4-3 lead. Nikolaj Ehlers gets a goal with an empty net with about a minute to go. So the Canes win it 5-3, and now that series all tied up at 2 games apiece, going back to Carolina, and it is on and popping because these are like 2 heavyweights going at it, trying to put the knockout punch in. And after 4 games, there is no advantage in this series. These teams have just gone at it. I mean, literally, there's only a 2-goal difference there's only a 1-goal difference. Check that in this series, tied up at 2 games apiece because, again, the Stanley Cup playoffs are all that, and this final is an example of that. KC does know hockey, but if you don't know hockey, you have to like the action you've seen between these 2 teams going at it to try and hoist Lord Stanley's Cup, the most coveted championship, the most coveted trophy in sports is Lord Stanley's Cup. And now it's best 2 out of 3, with 2 of those games being in Carolina. And I totally expect this series to go 7 games. And who has the advantage here? Nobody. It depends on which team plays together, who wants it the most these next 3 games. So we will be right here to break that all down for you too. The NBA Finals, Game 4 tonight coming up in New York. The Knicks and the Spurs. The Knicks lead the series 2-1 after the Spurs went in and punched the Knicks in the face on Tuesday in New York, with the entire state of New York rooting against the Spurs. The Spurs weren't having it. They came in, and the moment was supposed to be too big for them. They were not supposed to be ready. They were not supposed to have the right experience. They were supposed to be ahead of schedule. Blah, blah, blah. The entire state of New York was ready to pounce on the San Antonio Spurs, but the Spurs said, whoa, whoa, whoa. We got something to say about that. They played a much better basketball game. They were aggressive early. The Spurs in all 3 of these games have had a double-digit lead in the first half. This time they were able to close it out. They weren't after they lost the first 2 games at home. In this series so far, the road team has won every game. We always say that a playoff series doesn't start until the road team wins. Well, this playoff series started from game 1 because now the Knicks trying to break that string and break the trend of the road team winning every game in this series. The Knicks were on a 13-game playoff run, a 13-game win streak when the Spurs snapped that on Tuesday in New York. So it was a whole lot at stake. The Spurs made a huge statement, and now this game is going to be mission critical for both teams because the pressure goes back to the Knicks now because they don't want to let the Spurs come in here, go into New York, and win 2 games and tie this series up as the Spurs are trying to. The Spurs got 32 points from Victor Wembanyama. Early, they were getting him the ball around the rim. He got a couple of lobs, a couple of throwdowns that got him going, and he was able to get the kind of shots he wanted. He scored 32 points on only 21 shots, kicked in along with 8 rebounds. Stephon Castle, who has been outstanding through this entire playoff run by the Spurs, had 23 points for them, and they got They got good play out of De'Aaron Fox, Devin Vassell with 15. My main man, Dylan Harper, who has just been huge, chipped in with another 16 points, and he has been just off the charts. The rookie, the second draft pick by the Spurs, has just played. So, I mean, they have that outstanding backcourt. The Spurs had only 8 turnovers after having 13 and 16 in the first 2 games. Victor Wembanyama, who had 10 turnovers in the first 2 games, had only 1 in game 3. So the Spurs shot 46% from the field and 35 from 3. They shot 36 and 25% in the first 2 games combined. So everything flipped a little bit for the Spurs. They played smarter. They played harder. They made the right plays. They got it done when they had to. They defended the Knicks better. Jalen Brunson had 32 points. OG Anunoby has been solid for the Knicks. He might have been their best player on both sides of the ball. He had 28 and only 13 shots. Jalen Brunson had 32, but 25 shots. Karl Anthony Towns did a disappearing act in the fourth quarter for the 3rd consecutive game. He scored 0 points in the 3rd quarter after he had 39 points, 21 rebounds in games 1 and 2. He had only 11 points and 8 rebounds in game 3. So he is going to have to play better, especially in the second half and in that fourth quarter. So, because there's not much margin for error with either one of these teams, because the Spurs could have won all 3 of these games, and so could the Knicks have won all 3 of these games. Well, it's 2-1 going into a big-time game 1. And you know, everybody will be ready. The president was at the game on Tuesday night. Everybody there. Of course, Spike Lee, Tracy Morgan, Ben Stiller, and all the Knick alumni crew of Patrick Ewing and John Starks and Allen Houston, Larry Johnson, and all those, Walt Frazier, and all those guys in the house. So, you know, everybody in the house for the Knicks. But the Spurs, the moment wasn't too big. The Spurs played game 3 like they were at home. They played freer, they played looser, and they just played better. And that's really what it comes down to. When you get this far in the playoffs, you're in the NBA championship. Nobody can do anything different. You might come up with a adjustment here, a little bit of a tweak there, but you know what they're going to do. If you're the Spurs, you want to get the ball to Victor Wembanyama in places he can do damage. If you're the Knicks, you're starting with Jalen Brunson, but you got to get the big cat and Karl Anthony Towns involved. You got to get shots for other guys. You got to get Mikal Bridges, also Miles McBride, Landry Shamet. The same way you won those 13 straight, you have to do the same thing and come out and try and do that tonight. And if the Knicks do that, I think they will win and take a 3-1 lead. But if they take a 3-1 lead in this series, is it over? Because the Spurs are not having it. These are not your father's Spurs. And these are not your father's Knicks either. Both these 2 teams have turned things around, outstanding coaching, and it just really comes down to execution. It comes down to rebounding, defending, and making shots in the fourth quarter. Again, the Spurs did everything they needed to do. They had 28 assists compared to 18 for the Knicks, so they were moving the basketball much better. Again, the turnovers for them are key. When they keep the turnovers low, you get more possessions. You aren't giving the ball to the other team, you get a chance to score more. It's just simple basketball math. And when you do that kind of math, and when you add a player like Victor Wembanyama, who is just absolutely unguardable when he takes advantage of the right matchups. In that play when he pushed Jalen Brunson, that's not a foul. It's just get out of here, little guy. Get back over there where you belong. They didn't call a foul then. He didn't get an upgrade to a flagrant sense. Everybody needs to stop. And everybody needs to stop getting on the referees. That is absolute. That conversation is dead. Nobody wins or loses because of the referees. Now, Mike Brown got to the podium and, he talked about the officiating. The Spurs shot 24 free throws in the second half compared to 8. But the fouls were 21 for San Antonio and 23 for the Knicks. So the fouls were even. The reason the Spurs shot more free throws because they have guys like Stephon Castle, Devin Vassell, and of course Wemby, who you have to foul to keep him from scoring, and the other guys go to the basket. So the Spurs had more free throws because they were more aggressive. But fans and media that blame the referees, just stop that. The referees are trying to do one thing: get the call right. They don't have there's only been one referee that tried to help somebody win a game, and we all know who that was back in the day. The referees are trying to make the right calls. They don't have a horse in the race. They don't care who wins or losing. Their job is to get the calls right, and they do most of the time with or without replay. So stop it with the referees. Your team lost because they didn't shoot well in the fourth quarter. Your team lost because they didn't defend. Your team lost because they turned the basketball over too much. And your team lost because they got outplayed. That's why they lost, not because of the referees. So get off that. All right, I'm done with my referee soapbox, but I just get tired of hearing that all the time because I don't know what basketball you guys are watching when you want to blame the referees for your team not getting it done. All right, Shohei Ohtani, again, putting on a show for the Los Angeles Dodgers, trying to win Cy Young and MVP. Is this dude the greatest athlete we have ever seen in any of all sports combined ever? Because, I mean, this guy is just, he's an alien. He's not from this planet. What he's doing, he's got a .74 ERA. Under a run ERA, 3/4 of a run ERA. And he pitched a no-hitter the other game in only 6 innings, and Dave Roberts wouldn't even let him go because of how they managed their pitchers for the Dodgers. I get it. But Shohei Ohtani, this guy is just an absolute freak. And he can throw 102-mile-an-hour sliders. Yeah, just ask Mike Trout when he tried to hit against him in the World Baseball Classic a few years ago. He's had 2 Tommy John surgeries on his elbow. Yeah, he's a cyborg. He is not human. And the question is he the greatest we've ever seen? I'm going to say, yeah, for me. I thought I would have said Muhammad Ali, but if you add what he does on both sides of that baseball, he is Cy Young on the mound and Babe Ruth at the plate. And people say he doesn't play a position. Yes, he does. He plays pitcher, and he's a DH. He plays 2 positions, and he plays it like nobody else ever has, and maybe nobody else ever will. Serena Williams makes her comeback to women's tennis. It's been almost 4 years since we saw the Queen on the court. She wins in doubles at the Queen's Club in England, along with Victoria Mboku, her partner. And now the question is, what will happen going forward? Her triumphant return is marred a little bit because Victoria Mboku today in her singles match injured her knee, and she's questionable about going forward in this tournament. And will Serena compete at Wimbledon coming up later on this month at singles? We will find out all of that, but it is great to see Serena Williams back on the court, the queen of tennis. We can never get enough of the greatest women's tennis player of all time, one of the greatest athletes of all time, male or female. So congratulations to Serena Williams making her comeback. Well, that is it for this edition of KC's Corner. Again, make sure you click the subscribe button. Here you subscribe to the videos, to the channel. That's KCJAMES 9186, KCJAMES 9186, KCJ Sports. Because you know how I do it. I give you the 411 and I keep it real. And if you don't know, you better ask somebody. I'll see you right here next time.